Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome. Please take your seats as we are about to begin. My name is Valentina Čolić, and I am at European Policy Center. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to the 4th Citizens First WeBER Regional Conference here in Belgrade. This opening session sets the stage for the 2 days ahead. Over the past decade, WeBER has promoted citizens and civil society as active partners in shaping, monitoring, and sustaining public administration reform across the Western Balkans. I would like to invite Ms. Milena Mihajlović Denić, WeBER team leader and program director at the European Policy Center, to open the conference with a few welcome words.
We always think we have to press something. Excellencies, Minister, Ambassador, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, welcome to the 4th Citizens First Regional Conference. Welcome to 10 years of WeBER. 10 years ago, 6 think tanks across the Western Balkans sat down and asked some questions that at that time very few people were asking. If public administration is where citizens actually meet the state, where your license is issued or refused, a passport renewed, public tender opened with money that belongs to everyone, or a law drafted that will govern our daily lives, then why are the people that are most affected by all of this, why are they absent from the conversation about how to change it? Where was the independent eye and where was the citizen voice? Public administration reform, as we all know in this room for sure, is a fundamental condition of EU membership, measured against the Sigma principles of public administration. Governments started reforming under those conditionalities, but reform without independent civil society oversight tends to stay on paper. And who would keep the pressure alive once the accession process either slowed, as in case of some countries, or once membership was achieved, as we hope will be the case of other countries? That answer had to come from within, from local civil society, rooted in each country's reality, and with the right tools to hold the governments accountable, not just once, but continuously. These deliberations and this conviction gave birth in late 2015 to WeBER, the Western Balkans Enable for Reforming Public Administrations. It is carried out by 6 organizations of the Think for Europe network, CEP in Belgrade, European Policy Institute in Skopje, Institute Alternative in Podgorica, the Institute for Democracy and Mediation in Tirana, the Group for Legal and Political Studies in Pristina, and the Foreign Policy Initiative Bosnia and Herzegovina in Sarajevo. The European Union believed in the idea, and at that time, the Kingdom of Netherlands also stood with us as a co-funding donor, so the work began. What came next is difficult to fit into 5 minutes. So I will start by saying that the WeBER Power Monitor, which is grounded in the Sigma principles, but built from scratch by us, is now the only systemic, comparative, evidence-based civil society assessment of public administration reforms across the whole Western Balkan region. Governments, the European Commission, international organizations, and hundreds of civil society actors use its findings. You will hear some of the latest results this morning. But behind the data is an ecosystem that has grown alongside the data and the information that we have produced. Through the WeBER platform and its 6 national power working groups, around 200 civil society organizations have been part of this conversation, alongside ministries, representatives of independent institutions, business associations, etc. 85 local organizations have been supported through the Small Grants Facility, 21 in this cycle alone, each bringing citizens' lived experience directly into national and local debates about the reforms. And behind all of it are the researchers who built the methodology, the project coordinators who made sure that project activities ran smoothly, and activists and institutional representatives who kept showing up for WeBER platform meetings, consultations, to this room today. So to every one of you, this decade belongs. And as I said, we didn't do all of this alone. WeBER as a project from the very beginning had great, tremendous support from both Sigma OECD and RESPA, the Regional School of Public Administration, who have opened doors, reviewed our reports, lent us credibility as well as they treated the civil society as a genuine partner in the PAR process. And we're deeply grateful for that. And we're also very grateful to the ministries and public administration offices and secretariats across all the 6 economies who have engaged seriously with our reports in every cycle, even when the indicator values in our assessments were not really flattering to their institutions. A special thanks goes to Public Policy Secretariat in Serbia for their support and partnership, especially for this cycle and for this conference. And to all of you, a great thanks for staying at the table all of these years. The EU has been our principal funder across all the 3 cycles. In this cycle, the Austrian Development Agency has been our main co-financing partner, and we are deeply grateful for their commitment to seeing WeBER through its 10th year. We're also grateful to the German Development Cooperation through the PAR2EU project implemented by GIZ for their additional support to this conference. And also a big thanks to other bilateral partners who have stood with us over the years, the Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Each of you made this decade possible. Thank you. The PAR Monitor reports do not flatter. They tell the truth as the evidence shows it. Sometimes we have shown that reforms have advanced in service digitalization, in civil society involvement in developing PAR strategies, or free access to information. Sometimes they have stalled, such as in public participation in policy making. And sometimes, as in the politicization of senior civil service or safeguards for merit-based recruitment, in some parts of the region they have moved backwards. We captured all of it, not to blame and shame, but to inform and to drive change, not to oppose, but to enable reformists in the administrations, to give boost to their efforts. Public administration reform, as Sigma and RESPA have patiently reminded us over the years, it's not a problem that you solve at once or in one project cycle or in one budget cycle. It is an inherently long-term process. It is a continuous process. And the donors in this room know this better than most, that it can be very frustrating not to see immediate results, not to see quick results. So we thank you also for your patience. We know that this asks a great deal. The context in which we are working has grown more and more demanding over the years. The citizens' expectations of public services have been reshaped by the digital world, and every government that falls behind that pace will lose trust. More broadly, democratic governance is under pressure across the continent and beyond. Authoritarian habits creeping back into how governments operate, politicization which is crowding out merit in civil services that should be durable and professional. And the geopolitical turbulence is pulling political and funding attention away from the slow, careful work of this reform. This is precisely the moment when citizen-centered public administration matters the most and when civil society oversight and participation matters the most. So over the next 2 days, we will work in that spirit. This morning, we will start with our policy lab experiences in human-centric service design. Then we will continue with the data, presenting you the WeBER PAR Monitor 24-25. Tomorrow, we will have grantees from across the region bring their community stories as together we recognize the projects that moved the needle for citizens this cycle. And I invite you to see the posters on both sides, the beautiful, colorful posters. If you scan the QR code, you can see the videos of the presenting the projects which will be presented tomorrow and on which we will jointly vote and decide the best projects. Then, after we hear from the grantees, then we will have a fishbowl on inclusive policy making, which will explore what genuine citizen participation in shaping legislation should actually looks like. And we will close with the question that gives our work its name: citizens first, always, a vision for what comes next. So I think that these questions and these topics are really worth our attention and our time the next 2 days, so please stay in this debate, in this discussion fully. Challenge the data, challenge the designs, challenge each other, bring the voices of your institutions, organizations, communities into every session. Because everything we have built here, the independent, citizen-rooted, regionally anchored activities, approaches, it all rests on one conviction, that public administration reform is in the end about citizens, about their licenses, permits, rights to information, trust in the state that we share. So citizens first, always. Welcome.
We now move to our keynote speakers. I invite His Excellency Andreas von Beckerath, Ambassador and Head of Delegation of the European Union in Belgrade, to deliver his keynote address.
Esteemed Minister, does it work now? Yes, I'm afraid to touch anything. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, thank you, first of all, so much for inviting me to speak at this important conference. As Milena just said, public administration reforms really lies at the heart of the EU accession process, and hence we really value the importance of this conversation, and we really think that this conference is incredibly important also in the perspective of the enlargement process and the accession process. Before I say a few words on the important role that the civil society, the CSOs, play when it comes to public administration reforms, let me just say a few words about public administration itself. I mean, the whole terminology, public administration, gives you the impression that it's designed to really serve the public, to engage with the public, to represent the public. But I would argue that it's really the bedrock of our democratic societies. When citizens feel that they receive the services that they're entitled to, and when the services are equally distributed, that you get the same service regardless of your connection or your wealth or your status in society. When this works, it has an important impact on the strength on our democratic societies. But when it doesn't work, it poses a risk. Because the public administration is really the interface between authorities and the citizens. And that is why it's so important that it works and that it has the trust of our citizens. Now, in an era where trust in institutions is increasingly tested, civil society organizations serve as a vital bridge between the citizens and the state. Their participation is not just beneficial, it is essential for an accountable, transparent, and responsive governance. In the context of the Western Balkans European integration, these roles take an even greater significance. As the region advances on its EU-guided reform path, the collaboration between governments, civil society, and citizens will determine the success of democratic institutions and the effectiveness of public administration. Civil society represents the third pillar of democracy, alongside public administration and private sector. It encompasses a diverse range of actors, NGOs, think tanks, trade unions, academia, grassroots movements, and others. They amplify citizens' voices, hold power to account, and advocate for marginalized groups. CSOs act as watchdogs, monitoring government actions and exposing abuses of power. They also serve as advocates, ensuring that policies reflect the needs of all citizens, not just the powerful or well-connected. CSOs often also deliver critical services where and when lacking, from healthcare and education to legal aid and environmental protection. They're innovators, piloting solutions that governments can later scale up. But for civil society to fulfill these roles effectively, it must be enabled to participate in the processes without facing legal restrictions, lack of transparent consultation mechanisms, smear campaigns, and unequal access to funding. This brings me to my second point, the importance of enabling civil society participation in government policy making. Meaningful participation of civil society in policy making is a hallmark of mature democracies and a core EU accession requirement. So why is this participation important? Well, firstly, for legitimacy. Policies developed with civil society rather than for civil society are more legitimate, inclusive, and effective. Secondly, the expertise that the CSOs brings. And I know this firsthand, dealing with everything from electoral reforms to media reforms, the importance of the expertise that the civil society organizations bring. They bring on-the-ground knowledge and expertise that governments may lack. Thirdly, trust building. When citizens see their input reflected in policies, trust in institutions grow. A critical factor in the Western Balkans where public trust remains low. Civil society's role is essential in the reform of public administration, a cornerstone of the EU accession process and a key driver of good governance. Public administration reform also represents the backbone of EU integration for the the backbone of EU integration for the Western Balkans. It ensures that institutions are efficient, accountable, and citizens-focused, qualities that are non-negotiable for EU membership. Despite progress, public administration reform in the Western Balkans faces three challenges: politicization of administration, resistance to transparency, and weak enforcement of reforms. Civil society helps overcome these challenges by demanding accountability, advocating for merit-based systems, strengthening transparency, and providing constant monitoring and practical recommendations. Ultimately, the goal of these reforms is to create citizen-centric governance. That is why the EU provides substantial funding and technical assistance in the Western Balkans to help strengthen CSO's capacities and their irreplaceable role in public administration reform. The WeBER 3.0 project is therefore designed to build networks and capacities for CSOs to effectively monitor and shape public administration reforms. Its unique monitoring reports, available per country and overall, provide valuable evidence-based insights. These reports highlight key impediments or success of public administration reform in the Western Balkan countries, drawing from the perspectives of the citizens and civil society organizations. As the project is reaching its successful conclusion, I would like to commend, but also thank the European Policy Center for the partner organizations of the Think for Europe network, for the valuable analytical work delivered in assessing and monitoring the progress within public administration reform in the region. In conclusion, public administration is a two-way street. The path to effective reform requires contributions of dedicated citizens and civil society organizations who at the same time need to have an enabling environment to be able to contribute properly. So I really wish everyone a fruitful exchange and the best of luck in the conclusion of this project. Thank you so much for listening.
I invite Mr. Goran Minchev, Minister of Public Administration of North Macedonia, to take the floor.
Good morning. Very hot day. I will speak in Macedonian language. I hope so the translate will be okay, because the last period Macedonian language is very popular in European Union. Thank you for your attention. Почитуван амбасадор и шеф на делегацијата на Европската унија во Белград, Ваша екселенција Andreas von Beckerath, почитуван директор на OECD и Сигма господин Грегор Virant, почитувани представници од амбасадите, партнери од Европската унија, од Сигма, од РЕСПА, од OECD, регионалните организации, почитувани представници на академската заедница. Дами и господа, ми представува особена чест што денес се опреќам на 4-та регионална конференција Citizens First, која се одржува во особено значаен момент 10 години од започнувањето на иницијативата WeBER во Западен Балкан.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to address you today at the 4th Regional Conference Citizens First, taking place at a particularly significant moment, 10 years since the launch of the WeBER initiative in the Western Balkans.
Оваа конференција не е само можност да направиме осврт на постигнатото. Таа е можност да размислиме за иднината на реформата на јавната администрација и за едно суштинско прашање. Како да обезбедиме реформите на вистина да создаваат вредност за граѓаните.
This conference is not merely an opportunity to reflect on what has been achieved. It is also an opportunity to consider the future of public administration reform and one essential question: how can we ensure that reforms truly create value for citizens?
Во изминатите години сите научивме важна лекција, а тоа е успешната јавна администрација не се мери само преку донесените закони, стратегии и институционални промени. Таа се мери преку довербата на граѓаните, квалитетот на услугите што ги добиваат и нивното чувство дека се активен дел од процесот на донесување на одлуките.
Over the past years, we have all learned an important lesson. A successful public administration is not measured only by the laws adopted, the strategies developed, or the institutional changes. It is measured by citizens' trust, the quality of services they receive, and their sense of being an active part of the decision-making processes.
Токму затоа денес се повеќе зборуваме за администрација која е ориентирана кон граѓаните, администрација која ги слуша граѓаните, ги разбира нивните потреби и ги вклучува во креирањето на решенијата. Како што покажува искуствата на WeBER во изминатата деценија, одржливите реформи се можни само кога граѓаните и граѓанското општество се препознаени како партнери во реформскиот процес.
This is precisely why we increasingly speak today about a citizen-oriented administration. An administration that listens to citizens, understands their needs, and involves them in designing solutions. As the experience of WeBER over the past decade has demonstrated, sustainable reforms are only possible when citizens and civil society are recognized as partners in the reform process.
За владата на Република Македонија овој пристап не е само декларативна заложба, туку конкретна политика што ја спроведуваме во пракса. Еден од најважните чекори кои што ги превземавме е формирањето на Министерството за јавна администрација како посебна институција, со јасен мандат да ги координира и унапредува реформите во јавната администрација.
For the government of the Republic of Macedonia, this approach is not merely a declarative commitment, but a concrete policy that we implement in practice. One of the first most important steps we have taken in the establishment of the Ministry of Public Administration as a separate institution with a clear mandate to coordinate and advance public administration reforms.
Со тоа испративме јасна порака дека реформата на јавната администрација е еден од врвните приоритети на владата и клучен предуслов за европска интеграција, економски развој и подобрување на услугите за граѓаните. Истовремено, посебно внимание посветуваме на транспарентност и инклузивен пристап во креирањето на јавните политики.
Through this, we have sent a clear message that public administration reform is one of the government's highest priorities and a key prerequisite for European integration, economic development, and the improvement of services for citizens. At the same time, we place particular emphasis on a transparent and inclusive approach to public policy making.
Веруваме дека добрите политики не може да се создаваат за затворени врати. Тие мора да бидат резултат на широк диалог и партнерство. Токму затоа во процесот на подготовка на новата законска рамка, Законот за административни службеници, Законот за вработени во јавниот сектор, како и Законот за стручно усовршување и обука на административните службеници, уште од најраната фаза ги вклучивме представниците на граѓанските организации, синдикатите, академската јавност и експертската јавност.
We believe that good policies cannot be created behind closed doors. They must be the result of broad dialogue and partnership. That is why from the earlier stages of drafting the new legislative framework, the law on administrative servants, the law on public sector employees, and the law on professional development and training of administrative servants, we involved representatives of civil society organizations, trade unions, academia, and the expert community.
Овој пристап го применуваме и во процесот на ревидирање на акцискиот план за спроведување на стратегијата за реформа на јавната администрација 2023-2030, затоа што сме уверени дека најдобрите решенија се создаваат преку диалог, партнерство и заедничка одговорност.
We are applying the same approach in the process of revising the action plan for the implementation of the Public Administration Reform Strategy 2023-2030, because we are convinced that the best solutions emerge through dialogue, partnership, and shared responsibility.
Особено сум горд што по повеќе годишни обиди и препораки од домашните и меѓународните партнери успеавме да подготвиме законско решение за висока раководна служба. Предлог законот веќе е во собраниска процедура и представува историски чекор кон професионализација на највисоките раководни позиции во извршната власт, а тоа е центарот на владата.
I am particularly proud that after many years of efforts and recommendations from both domestic and international partners, we have succeeded in preparing a legal solution for the senior civil service. The draft law is already in parliamentary procedure and represents a historic step towards the professionalization of the highest managerial positions within the executive branch, the very center of the government.
Паралелно со законските реформи, работиме и на тамошна надградба на информацијскиот систем за управување со човечките ресурси, КРМИС. Овој систем ни овозможува да воспоставиме современо, стратешко и податочно засновано управување со човечките ресурси во јавниот сектор и представува важна алатка за планирање, следење и развој на административниот капацитет.
Alongside these legislative reforms, we are also working on further upgrading the HRMIS, the Human Resources Management Information System. This system enables us to establish a modern, strategic, and data-driven approach to human resources management in the public sector and serves as an important tool for planning, monitoring, and developing administrative capacity.
Со поддршка на РЕСПА подготвен е и нов портал за реформа на јавната администрација, кој наскоро ќе биде ставен во функција и ќе биде достапен за сите граѓани, институции и заинтересирани страни. Преку овој портал на едно место ќе може да се следи напредувањето во спроведувањето на стратегијата за реформа на јавната администрација, реализацијата на активностите, постигнатите резултати и клучните документи поврзани со реформскиот процес.
With the support of RESPA, a new public administration reform portal has also been developed and will soon become operational and accessible to all citizens, institutions, and stakeholders. Through this portal, users will be able to monitor in one place the progress in implementing the public administration reform strategy, the implementation of activities, the results achieved, and key documents related to the reform process.
Нашата стратегија за реформа на јавната администрација 2023-2030 година е целосно согласена со принципите на Сигма и европските стандарди за добро управување. Истовремено, успешно ја спроведуваме и реформската агенда, потврдувајќи ја нашата посветеност кон европските интеграции и кон создавање на институции кои испорачуваат резултат кон граѓаните.
Our public administration reform strategy 2023-2030 is fully aligned with the Sigma principles and European standards of good governance. At the same time, we are successfully implementing the reform agenda, reaffirming our commitment to European integration and to building institutions that deliver results for citizens.
Следната фаза на реформа на јавната администрација мора уште посилно да се темели на принципите на кокреирање и учество на сите заинтересирани страни во сите фази од процесот на креирање на политики. Граѓаните не смеат да бидат само корисници на услугите. Тие треба да бидат активни партнери во нивното креирање.
The next phase of public administration reform must be even more firmly based on the principles of co-creation and the participation of all stakeholders throughout every stage of the policy-making process. Citizens must not be merely users of services. They should be active partners in their design.
Затоа што на крајот реформата на јавната администрација не е цел само по себе. Нејзината цел е вистински подобар живот за граѓаните, поквалитетни услуги, посилна доверба во институциите и поуспешно општество.
Because in the end, public administration reform is not an end in itself. Its true purpose is to improve citizens' lives, provide higher quality services, strengthen trust in institutions, and build a more successful society.
Доколку граѓаните чувствуваат дека институциите работат со нив и за нив, тогаш можеме да кажеме дека реформите ја постигнале својата цел. За крај, би истакнал дека нашата цел како влада е јасна. Реформите да не се креираат зад затворени врати, туку преку отворен диалог и партнерство со граѓаните. Ви благодарам на вниманието.
If citizens feel that institutions work with them and for them, then we can say that the reforms have achieved their purpose. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that our objective as government is clear: to ensure that reforms are not designed behind closed doors, but through open dialogue and partnership with citizens. Thank you.
I now welcome Sabine Olthoff, Country Director at GIZ, to address us.
Dear Minister, dear Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, good morning. It is a great pleasure to be here today at the Citizen First Conference and to reflect together on public administration reform in the Western Balkans. In German Development Cooperation, we strongly believe that conferences like today help to push the topic forward, and especially when they are organized on a regional level and people from the Western Balkans can exchange experience and knowledge in a very closed setting. As the German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier once stated, confidence in public institutions is the foundation for social peace and prosperity. Public administration reform is ultimately about improving people's everyday life. It means making services easier to access and simpler to use. It means reducing unnecessary burdens for businesses, and it means building institutions that citizens can trust. Germany highly values its long-standing partnership with Serbia and cooperation across the region in advancing public administration reform, one of the key elements of the EU's fundamentals first approach and an important driver for democratic governance and European integration. We all know that there are still a lot of problems and challenges and open questions left. But I would also like to address today the achievements which have already been done. We have witnessed tangible process in turning reforms into practical results that made interactions between citizens, businesses, and public institutions simpler and more effective. Serbia's progress is also recognized internationally. In a few years, Serbia improved its position in the EU e-government and development index from the 58th to the 39th place worldwide. This is a strong indication that investments in digital transformation is delivering concrete results. The introduction of the e-papier program and the broader digitalization agenda has contributed to a shift from administration focused on procedures to administration focused on citizens. Important reforms such as the implementation of the law on general administrative procedures, the development of the e-government portal e-Uprava, and the registry of administrative procedures, the so-called RAP portal, have helped simplify interactions between citizens, businesses, and the state. Together with Serbian partners, GIZ has provided support for improving the RAP portal, a centralized platform that brings together information on public services. Now information on 694 procedures delivered by 134 public administration authorities are available for citizens, enabling them to get necessary data, what is the procedure, who is in charge, and what are the costs of these services. We are particularly pleased that the RAP portal was recognized among the top 3 projects in Europe at the European Enterprise Promotion Awards 2025 for its contribution to the digital transition. We as GIZ also supported the introduction of innovative and human-centered approaches in the design and delivery of public services, as well as their optimization and digitalization. A recent example is a cooperation between the National Employment Service, the Public Policy Secretariat, and the Office for IT and e-Government, through which several national employment services have been optimized and digitalized. Citizens will soon be able to register as job seekers online and apply for unemployment benefits. Besides working in Serbia, we are also very active in the region in public administration reform. From our point of view, public administration reform is about openness, accountability, and listening to citizens. Germany has therefore supported the establishment of the e-consultancy portal, emphasizing its important role in fostering public participation and enhancing the transparency and policy-making processes. Dialogue with civil society and mechanisms for gathering citizens' feedback create a culture of openness, participation, and accountability in public government. At a time when Europe is facing complex political, economic, and social challenges, the relationship between citizens and public institutions matter more than ever. When people understand how decisions are made and have opportunities to contribute to policy making, institutions become stronger, more credible, and more effective. This is not only a matter of good governance, it is a prerequisite for resilient democracies, successful reforms, and meaningful progress of the European path. Thank you very much.
I now welcome Mr. Gregor Virant, head of OECD Sigma, to deliver his keynote remarks.
Minister, Ambassador, dear colleagues, thank you for the invitation. Happy to be with you today, with colleagues, with friends. We in Sigma consider WeBER a valued partner, and also all the CSOs that are joined in WeBER, and also the individuals with whom we work. For us, the civil society specialized in public administration reform is a very valuable partner in particular because you bring very high-level expertise, and you give us independent, unbiased, impartial insights and information that are very valuable for us. We appreciate your monitoring work. We would be happy if it could continue, but even if it doesn't, we will keep cooperating with you. We appreciate the fact that you structure your monitoring work around the principles of public administration. So do we, and it also makes sense because the principles have somehow become recognized as a sort of soft acquis in the area of public administration reform, which does not have a lot of hard acquis. There are bits and pieces, of course, in public procurement, digital, and so on, but in many, many areas, such as civil service or organization of public administration, there's no hard acquis. And the principles, in this sense, are very helpful to guide the countries. We appreciate the topics you have selected in your methodology. We appreciate the selection of indicators. There is one indicator I particularly like and quote most frequently. This is your survey question on the perception of citizens about the merit-based recruitment. And guess what? A vast majority of citizens in the Western Balkans do not believe that civil servants are recruited based on merit and competencies, but rather based on personal and political connections. When one reads your reports and our reports, one can see that we share views, we have similar views, we come to similar conclusions in terms of which country in a certain year or period of time advanced faster or slower, where are the strengths, where are the weaknesses, similar conclusions, although, of course, we have slightly different points of view. Your point of view is the civil society point of view, the point of view of citizens, which you are, of your respective countries, and our point of view, let's say, is more that of a professional experts in public administration. Now, Sigma has been following public administration reforms in the region for more than a decade now. Our first comprehensive assessment, at that time we called it a baseline assessment, was carried out in 2015. So it's been more than 10 years now. And in this period, of course, we have come to certain conclusions. We have certain takeaways that we like to share. We have many takeaways, but just to mention one or two. One thing is that in this, let's say, medium-term period, we can say that there has been progress. If we compare public administrations in the region today with the situation 10 or 12 years ago, we see progress. It is slow, yes. We are sometimes frustrated, yes. It is also uneven, from country to country, from area to area. You have front runners, you have countries doing slightly less well. And of course, it's also uneven when you look at various areas. Very fast progress, good progress in digital service delivery. On the other hand, slower in civil service and HRM. Another important takeaway is that we always notice a large gap between the legislation on one hand and policies and strategies, so what you can see on paper, and the practice and outcomes on the other hand. And we can even measure it, because in our new methodology, as you know, we categorize the criteria and we can really come up with a result on legislation and with the result on practice and outcomes. There's a large gap between the two, and we attribute this gap to a large extent, and we also have evidence for that, to the issue of culture or mentality. Because if there is one thing that we consider important in public administration reform is that the most difficult to change, but also the most important to change is the culture, political culture, the administrative culture, the overall culture in the country, the mentality. You know, it's much easier to tick the boxes and amend a law or a regulation, and much more difficult to get the buy-in for the values that are behind the certain European standards. And this is also why we have to be careful. And we should not, let's say, exaggerate, and we should not, you know, live in illusions that we can introduce perfect solutions in transition countries. We have to go step by step. We have to introduce reforms carefully so that they are bought in. We also have to understand the governments which are under pressure, even in this region. You know, they have to deliver. They have to deliver towards the European Union. They have to deliver towards the citizens. They are under pressure. And, you know, they would, of course, like to introduce certain reforms, but sometimes they just can't do it very fast. One more thing that I'm sure we all agree on is that the success of reforms to a large extent depends on the political will. You know, we have seen when there was political will in certain countries in the Western Balkans, but also in the Eastern Partnership, when there was will, we have seen amazing progress in the area of digitalization and service delivery. We have in the Western Balkans and in the Eastern Partnership countries that are front runners in this area. I'm talking about Albania, Serbia here in the region, or Ukraine in the East. So political will is extremely, extremely important. SIGBA is planning another assessment round next year in 2027. We are particularly excited about it for various reasons. First of all, it will be the biggest, the largest assessment exercise ever, because we will carry out the assessment in all the 6 public administrations in the Western Balkans, but also in 2 eastern ones, in Ukraine and Moldova. We would do Armenia as well, but we have just done it last year. So we will have a fantastic comparison across the board between the countries of the Western Balkans and the Eastern Partnership. We are also slightly adjusting our methodology, mostly in the direction of getting as many as possible international comparisons. To put it plastically, we would like to show as many as possible charts where our data on the Western Balkans and Eastern Partnership could be presented alongside with the OECD and EU members. Because this is, let's say, one of the few weaknesses of our methodology. You know that our methodology is very comprehensive, is very thorough, but as there are not other methodologies out there that would be equally thorough, it is not easy to find, to get comparative data, right? So we are trying to find as many as possible and to present it in the way that we will be able to position Serbia or Albania or North Macedonia on the map together with the OECD and EU countries. And of course, next year's assessment will also be exciting because it will happen in a moment which is particularly intensive for the EU accession. You know, after a very long time, for the first time, we have some low-hanging fruits. We have some hopes that certain country or certain countries will join the European family, which I think was really badly needed. You know, I was myself a part of the accession process back then, in the 90s and to 2000 in my country. You know, working on public administration reform as a part of accession then. And I can tell you that the overall atmosphere in that accession route was much more positive, because we all all the time saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and we knew that, there are certain steps that have to be made, but at the end, it will all end well. This time, the accession process is much more frustrating for everyone, and in this light, it is so important that, one or two countries join as soon as possible. So once again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure. I wish you a very pleasant conference, and have a good day. Thank you.
And finally, in our opening session, I welcome Mr. Marash Dukaj, Minister of Public Administration of Montenegro, to address us via video message.
Poštovani predstavnici WeBER inicijative, uvažene kolege iz civilnog sektora, međunarodnih organizacija i institucija. U ime Ministarstva javne uprave Crne Gore i u svoje lično ime čestitam vam deceniju uspješnog rada. Žao mi je što zbog ranije preuzetih obaveza danas nijesam u mogućnosti da budem sa vama, ali tehnologija nam omogućava da uprkos udaljenosti podijelimo ključne poruke. Tema konferencije, građani na prvom mjestu, srž je reformi koje sprovodimo i u našoj zemlji. Uspješnost institucija više se ne mjeri procedurama, već sposobnošću da brzo, transparentno i odgovorno odgovore na potrebe građana i privrede. Zato je modernizacija javne uprave temeljni stup našeg integracionog procesa. Naš cilj je efikasna i pristupačna administracija koja direktno unapređuje kvalitet života. Ključni pokretač tog procesa je digitalna transformacija kojom mijenjamo kulturu rada, pojednostavljujemo usluge i jačamo povjerenje javnosti. U ovom zahtjevnom poslu partnerstvo sa civilnim društvom ima neprocjenjivu vrijednost. Konstruktivna kritika i nezavisni monitoring nisu prepreka, već motor promjena. Najvažnije institucije su upravo one koje imaju kapacitete da čuju eksternu ekspertizu i pretoče je u bolje javne politike. Želim vam uspješnu konferenciju i nastavak zajedničkog rada na izgradnji javne uprave koja građane zaista stavlja na prvo mjesto. Srdačan pozdrav iz Crne Gore. Poštovani predstavnici WeBER.
Thank you. Our next panel is titled In the Spotlight, Human-Centric Design of Public Services in the Western Balkans. Through short pitches on Policy Lab, processes, and a panel discussion, we will explore how design thinking and participatory approaches are being put into practice across the region, and what it takes to make citizen-centered service delivery the norm rather than the exception. I invite Ms. Valentina Čolić Mihajlović from FEFA Faculty to take over our next session.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first panel session of today's conference. We'll talk about human-centric public services in the Western Balkan, with a special focus on experiences from WeBER policy labs. Over the past decade of public administration reform, we've learned that effective public services cannot be designed solely within institutions. Around the world, governments are moving from services organized around institutions to services organized around people, life events. At the same time, the effective services are designed not only with citizens in mind, but with citizens on board. In fact, around 40% of OECD countries now use design thinking methodologies in designing their public services. The WeBER Policy Labs were created exactly with this idea in mind, to bring together public institutions, civil society organizations, experts, and citizens themselves to jointly identify challenges and co-create solutions. Of course, using design thinking methodologies and user experience approach. I'd now like to invite our distinguished guests to join me on stage, but I'll just take a seat and invite them one by one. Thank you. Okay. Ninoslav Kekić, Public Policy Secretariat of the Republic of Serbia. Marcela Kërëku, Department of Public Administration, Albania. Bruno Monteiro from Sigma, OECD. Bojana Bajić, Regional School of Public Administration, Montenegro. Ana Jeličić, Design Thinkers Academy, Serbia. Milena Mihajlović Denić, European Policy Center, Serbia. Simonida Kacarska, European Policy Institute, North Macedonia. Njomza Arifi, Group for Legal and Political Studies, Kosovo. We'll first have 3 introductory speeches about experiences from WeBER policy labs in different countries. Milena, shall you be first?
I will stand. That's okay. I think
Okay.
it's. Yeah? Can you hear me? Okay. So I have to do this in 3 minutes, so it's all, it's all written down because it's a lot. Changing your surname in Serbia is a single decision, but one that triggers up to 12 separate procedures to update your personal documents and data across registries. Up to 8 institutions, at least 2 working days, fees of up to 20,000 dinars, which is almost 200 euros, no unified form, no official guidance, just confusion and frustration. And believe me, I know this firsthand, having changed my surname 3 times. This affects nearly 40,000 people a year, 30,000 marriages and 10,000 divorces. And the burden falls almost entirely on women, because as you know, in our culture, it's the women who change the surnames, not the men. This was the problem that we set out to redesign through the WeBER Policy Lab in Serbia. And in March 25, CEP brought together 4 institutions, the Public Policy Secretariat, who was very keen to support this initiative, the Ministry of Public Administration and Local Self-Government, the Ministry of Interior, and the Office for IT and E-Government. So we jointly worked to define the challenge and agree on the objective. And the objective was set as a live-based event, one-stop shop procedure for updating all personal documents and data across registries in a single service. So applying design thinking, we started with empathizing with our users. We organized a focus group with 6 women who had recently gone through the process and then followed up with 5 in-depth interviews. We deepened the analysis through expert interviews with the key institutions and desk review of the legal and procedural framework, of course. The findings were concrete and consistent. Women received no clear information from any institution, and they were navigating the process through Google searches and law firm blogs. They were physically carrying their own documents between offices that by regulation should have been exchanging them directly. And with each new step, they had no idea how many more visits, fees, or deadlines they would face. With those insights, we ran a joint ideation and prototyping workshop in May 25, where 15 participants from the public institutions and also our researchers from CEP worked side by side for an entire day. The key reframing in our ideation wasn't just how to reduce the number of visits, but how can we make one request trigger everything? And that drove 87 ideas, which we then clustered, voted on, and distilled into 2 prototypes and 1 additional proposal. The first prototype is a detailed description of a unified digital service on the e-government portal. 1 login, 1 payment slip, 1 appointment system that handles the rest. The second is a unified physical form for the one-stop shop service for those who cannot or prefer not to go digital. And we also proposed a step-by-step guide, which would be entitled, "You change your surname, now what?" as a supplementary tool which would be easy to distribute to users at the offices. The prototypes have been presented to the key stakeholders, and both the institutions and as well as a potential donor have shown genuine interest, but we haven't reached the testing and implementation stages yet. So we have more steps of the design thinking to apply in the future. We really hope that this year will bring about the conditions to continue this work, but at the moment, the next steps are firmly with the institutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Milena.
Good morning. I feel very lucky not to have changed my name even once. to be honest. Thank you. I'm going to reflect on the North Macedonia experience of the design thinking model that we applied in WeBER. First, good morning from my side. On behalf of the European Policy Institute, I want to thank our colleagues from CEP and all of our other partners from the Think for Europe network, as well as everyone for their kind words this morning. We've been in this together for 10 years now, and it's been quite a ride. What we did in North Macedonia was actually to imagine trying to navigate the hurdles that were just mentioned, and you find the doors actually very much shut. So we, in North Macedonia, according to official census data, there's about 94,000 people living with disabilities. So we realized on behalf, with this 10-year experience that we have had with WeBER, many of our surveys previously have shown how inaccessible services have been to people with disabilities, and this was our starting point, using what we have had for this, from this experience of 10 years and to move onward. What we tried is actually together, we did first a focus group with people with disabilities, managed also led through a whole process led by one of our most prominent activists on working on inclusion of people with disabilities to actually see what are the hurdles. The hurdles were many. I think many of us in this room are very well aware, but we tried small from this focus group together in partnership with the Ministry of Public Administration to bring together a group of 27 public administration officials from all around the public administration. So working on interior affairs, health, education, social services, local governance, employment, and so on. We employed a process which was not easy, actually, to face the providers of the services oftentimes with the hurdles that many people with disabilities are facing is not an easy process. It was a process of co-creation, of discussion, facing against a very difficult reality that not all of us oftentimes think of. But as I said, if we go back to my starting point, it's almost 100,000 people that are dealing with this on an everyday level. So when we applied the parts of the design thinking methodology, we developed a pilot training curriculum that will be integrated, I was hoping the minister will be here when I say this, that will be integrated into the generic training for all of the public administration officials in North Macedonia, so that actually we can ensure some long-term sustainability and systemic inclusion to pushing towards a public administration that actually opens the door and serves each citizen equally. I want to thank our team, Juliana, Beba, and Baska, for working on this and hoping to take this further down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
Thank you.
just mix this
Njomza.
and I'll be sitting.
Okay.
Thank you for the time. It's, as Milena said, it's not easy to demonstrate the work of month-long period for 3 minutes, but I'll try that. But before delving into what we did in Kosovo, I would like to note one fact, and that is that WeBER, besides being a credible source of information on public administration reform assessment, it also has been, over the years, a pioneer of innovative ideas, and precisely design thinking methodology and policy labs were among them, and for that we are proud as a network and as a team working for more than 10 years in this initiative. In Kosovo, we were among the first organizations that have worked in implementing policy lab and design thinking methodologies based on the needs assessments and on the issues that citizens have during the obtaining of public services. We came to the conclusion that for our design thinking methodology, we should work on digitalization of education credentials, which remains among the most challenging services provided by the administrative public institutions in Kosovo, while there are thousands of students in a year that obtain these services. Of course, throughout the whole period, we used the human-centered design, and we went through all the phases of the design thinking methodology. So at first, we held a workshop with students, academia, relevant ministries, including the Ministry of Education, also independent bodies such as the Accreditation Agency, but also recent graduates that are the users of this service. And the main idea of the focus group was to identify their experiences while obtaining, verifying their diplomas, certificates, or any form of education credentials in Kosovo. Second phase was the phase of defining the core issues. What was the core problem that students experienced during obtaining these services? And one of the most common challenges that users experience is that while trying to get their diplomas, they have to submit same documents multiple times, and it of course results with unnecessary costs, delays, and also poses a huge administrative burden for public institutions as well. So once the main problem was identified, we went further and organized a policy lab in Pristina, where most of the stakeholders present there agreed on the models that can be used to ease the administrative burden while obtaining your education credentials in Kosovo. And this resulted with a comprehensive paper that was published afterwards, but also 4 main outcomes that came from this policy lab, which is to establish a centralized digital registry for education credentials was the first proposal. Second one was to explore interoperability with other government systems. So once this digital registry system is created, how can we integrate that into other different government systems? And third one was that this reform has to align with the institutional realities. So it's a reform that will have to go gradually, and it's not a thing that can be done fast or easy. And while the digitalization is the key word here, of course, the last prototype was on how to safeguard the protection of personal data during the period. What we have gotten as feedback is that such methodologies, such approaches towards issues, towards services, was highly welcomed by all partners involved. And it was among the first times that we did not only get the prototypes or recommendations from the institutional perspective, but also from the end users of the services. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of our introductory speakers. Now we'll try to, together with panelists, introductory speakers, and all of you in the audience, try to identify what works, what doesn't work, and how we can move from these individual initiatives to systematic application of human-centric design across the whole region. Before we move to our discussion, I'll now like to give our panelists an opportunity to react to these introductory speeches. So if you have any question or a reflection that you would like to share, please do so.
It's not easy to be first after these presentations. That's it. That is the right approach. All our processes in reshaping of the services or the laws or public policies have to be based on the citizen needs and business entity needs. And because of that, maybe one crucial thing from all of these examples are the discussion about that needs and what the citizens expect from that process. And from these 3 examples, we can see the results like one-stop shop for more than one services, because if you change the surname, you have a nightmare with administration to changing all documents. We have a point with only one system, so many documents, same documents on the different counters and different procedures, and all of these examples can describe that discussion about needs is very important. We can use all tools from the human-centric design methodology, or few of them, but we cannot exclude that part about the discussions and how to end users see that services.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question or reflection? Okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay. Across EU member states, we are seeing a shift from institutional center service design towards to the user approaches, user-centered approaches. What do you think? What's the best practice and to greatest improvement for satisfaction and trust of the citizens? And as the public administration reform remains main challenging in fundamental cluster, how important is participation of citizens and co-creations of EU assessment in credibility and sustainability of reforms? And do you believe that the future of public administration reform is remain in Western Balkans depends more designing better regulations or designing reforms together with citizens?
I will start. Thank you, Marcela, for the questions. For us, concretely, for our policy lab, the biggest inspiration came from the service Baby Welcome to the World, which was the first live event-based service that was implemented in Serbia, and probably the most visible one from the beginning of these reforms, at least to like general population. And this service, which I think it's been almost 10 years, Ninoslav, that it's been implemented, practically meant that, you know, in the most difficult days right after the baby is born, parents no longer had to roam around the offices to, you know, register the baby for the address, for health insurance, to get the birth certificate, but actually the mom or the dad would just fill out the questionnaire together with a nurse in the nursery in the hospital, and all these documents would be at their doorstep after a few weeks. And this was a huge success, and it actually showed that if the administrative offices and institutions do work together, that even before we had a proper system for everything, for all the exchanges and all the government service bus, at that time it was not all yet in place, but they made it work. And I think that, and our hope is that with this new service, that we would actually, in a similar way, impact the wider society. And as I mentioned, you know, the number of users potentially is really, really high. I do believe that this is the future of public administration reform. I believe that, you know, we need to speak about this at every event, at every conference, because the more that the administration learns to listen to the users and to the citizens in everything that it does, and this is not just about service design and service delivery, it is also about hearing what the citizens think about the civil service, about the integrity of civil servants. It's also about hearing how citizens perceive their right to freedom of information and how much information and right information they can actually obtain from the administration. So many different issues across the public administration reform, let's say, in its totality. Many issues actually would hugely benefit from this user-centric approach and from actually starting with empathizing with the user. And I always like to focus on that term, empathizing, because I think that, you know, there is no other word with which you can actually describe what you're supposed to do at the start of that process. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the citizen. And sometimes it is difficult for us when we are in our professional roles to also remember that we are also citizens. So I think that this is really a key point, and that, you know, a lot of trainings, discussions, really working with the civil servants who are at the helm of designing policies and services. I think it's very important to work with those people to really teach them how to empathize, how to implement those processes, and how to learn from that.
If I just may just a minute, I think I touched upon the rationale of behind our approach, behind our selected pilot. It was actually the fact that for 10 years, in all of the surveys of WeBER actually that we have done, accessibility was an issue, and from various perspectives. So we said, you know, now we have a chance to actually try to make something to move this forward. And I don't think that we've made a revolution, that it will take a lot more for all of us. But I think also from the perspectives of civil society, it's also very important to develop a structured way and methodological way of working with the users or working with the citizens, because it's not only just consultations and then that's the end of the story. So that's why I mentioned that we are, the next step will be actually pushing this forward through our work. And definitely, the main added value that we had also from practically bringing together 27, as I said, representatives of the administration from various areas to the reality of the people with disabilities using the services, I think made probably a lasting impression on them that will multiply across the administration on a very human level, going back to the issue of empathizing, while we find the best ways to actually move along how to adapt the services, alongside with the trend of digitalization, which I think you in Albania are mostly familiar with, and with the challenge of actually leaving many people behind. I think these were the kind of the pillars of our thinking that guided us throughout, and thanks for that question.
I would just like to add just a short point on what Milena and Simonida said. Human-centric, user-centric approach is the only right way to move forward. Most of the countries, or even all of the countries of the region, are not at the level of initiation of policies, or policies are there. Of course, there are others that are additional for and a prerequisite for EU integration. However, we're not in a developing phase. So now digitalization should be the way forward in order to be closer to the citizens. For example, in our case, when we had the focus group, students were highly unaware of methods they can complain to institutions while obtaining services, and unaware of services provided. So in parallel to digitalization of services, there should be some awareness as well but yes, user-centric approach is the only way forward, I think.
Thank you for all of these reflections. I'd now like to hear Ninoslav, as somebody who also participated in the policy labs, in Serbia. How does your experience resonate with these experiences we've just heard?
When we started I was a part of some stages of policy lab in Serbia under the WeBER. In a stage where when was the moment to involve someone from the public administration who can coordinate the different interests from the different parts. We testing in that lab almost all steps and all tools of human-centric design methodology, and result of that lab was a great proposal for cutting so many obstacles in a process of nightmare when someone, because they change some the data about their personality, have to change so many different documents. And the biggest success was the open discussion about needs, sometimes wishes, sometimes obstacles, and the learning process of all public administration servants who was participating in that process, how to listen to understand the different approach, the different point of view for the same service, the point of view of the end users, to recognize the differences between the approaches from the business entities or companies and the public administration, because all of us are providers of the services. And this methodology, the companies recognize some parts of this methodology without this name. The companies recognize 50 years ago. Why? Because of competition. For the public administration, we don't have competition, but we have the end users, and we are end users on the end of this story. And when you want to see the smile front of the counter, you can expect that only if your service is high quality. This process make the more open discussion between the end users and providers of the public services, and to make a movement in a process of improvement to the methodology for creation of the services in the creation process in Serbia. Because Milena mentioned in one moment 10 years ago that was the we created a single point for the baby welcome to the world with so many services. But 20 years ago, not 20, 18 years ago, we created a great one-stop shop for registration based on experience of the citizens. And that was the ad hoc approach. Right now we work on how to create the comprehensive and under the coordination approach for all institutions which are the providers of services, and involve them in a process of simplification and all of this. And in this process, we create something great with great support of our almost 25 years partner from Federal Republic of Germany and the GIZ. They support us in whole process, how to manage all this process and organize all of these workshops. And on the end of this process, right now, we work together with the end users on methodology with the tools from the human-centric design methodology for creation the services in Serbia.
So you're tackling a broader issue, not a specific service, right?
The specific service was our test service, and we want to create that like success. Not only like a pilot, like one of the first step of the under coordination simplification using the human-centric design methodology, not like using the ad hoc for some of the processes of co-creation, the services, that methodology.
Thank you. In Albania, we also have a similar situation where the Policy Lab didn't tackle a specific service, but really tried to integrate trust and integrity within the whole public administration. So Marcela, can you tell us what's your opinion on how these mechanisms such as ethics advisors help transform the public administration from a procedure-oriented system to citizen-centered system the citizens really trust?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to share the experience from my country. I am the Director of Integrity, Oversight, Administrative and Judicial Issues in Department of Public Administrations for many years. And from perspective of Albanians, I know perfectly that when we're discussing for the reforms, the focus mainly is the digitalizations, institutional infrastructure, legislations. These are a good achievement and are important achievement. But after a decade of reforms in public administration reform in Western Balkans, we know and we are aware that the main challenge is not transforming and changing the legislation and regulations, but institutional culture. This is very important. And from perspective of my country, moving from compliance-based administrations into values-based administrations is very important. And the real question is whether the citizen trusts public institutions as fair, trustworthy, transparent, accountable. And from this reason, I think that the approaching or designing ethical advisor and raising awareness, raising of integrity is much better of our reforms. And for this reason, in the main challenging and the main significant reforms that we have done right now is introductions of ethical advisor. Ethical advisor is the bridge between institution and the citizens. Is advisor or the trust advisor with employee is a partner in institutional leadership, is the real bridge for the citizens. It's not necessary to know everything. Necessary is to address the issues, is to be in front of the citizens. Today we are public employee. Tomorrow we'll be the simple citizens. And these reforms are not for nowadays, are for tomorrow, when we'll be in front of the public officer. And for this reason, we'll be, and it's a big commitment to be together and to make this reform real. And the ethical advisor is not like the disciplinary inspector in my country. No, I would like to thank you very much, WeBER project, that we give the possibility as beneficiaries to have the guidelines for ethical advisor, and together with Institute for Democracy and Mediations, I would like to thank you very much for the closer cooperations in this reform, great reform, because nowadays the ethical advisor is like the trust advisor for employee. If you have some dilemmas, ethical dilemmas, not to become the problems for disciplinary, administrative, or sections, or penal sections. It's very good to give the solutions. And these ethical advisors are here, close to employers, close to HR, human resources sectors, and direct superior to be close to the problems and to become this problem not to become more essential for citizens and for employee. And we have 3 pillars that are very important in these reforms. After, the first is the support of the employee, support the citizens, support of the superior or institution entitled. And second is awareness, raising awareness. Talk it about is a good sessions that we can discussing in group together or selected people, or to continuous training, or to continuous integrity campaigns. Everything is very good for you as a public employee and for the citizens. And after is monitoring and reporting. Monitoring, we have done the annual report in ethical issues, and we have some sessions, and we have prepared some manual that are very important for HR, for employee, and for institutions, and the citizens know perfectly how to address the issues, how kind or standard of behavior that should be addressed to them. And they know perfectly that what are the dilemmas of the situations and to resolve that. This is very important. And integrity and ethics is not the theoretical concept. It's practical nowadays. And for this, if you awareness and raising awareness of the integrity, you can develop your economics, you can develop in every dimension of the life. And so thank you very much for your attention, and I will be open for any discussion or question that you can raise during the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for stressing this important and broad challenge with such a forward-looking perspective. Now let us move to the regional aspect. Bojana, As somebody who is working in a regional organization, can you tell us how do you see Western Balkans economies evolving to citizen-centered approach? And are there any particularly successful examples that you would like to pick that deserve broader attention or maybe even replication?
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to discuss here this topic. I hope that you can hear me. RESPA established 15 years ago, and at that time, RESPA, as a regional school of public administration, has... Is it better now? I hope that now it's better, thank you. And since 2010 until today, the public administration changed a lot. At that time, that was the institutional-oriented public administration. Now we are talking about user-oriented, public servants-oriented, and I think that we have to have that approach when we discuss about the needs and services that has to be provided through the public administration. There are many good examples in the region, and I can say that during the mandate of RESPA, and based on different instruments of support, as well as capacity buildings program, a cooperation with the Digital Transformation Working Group with representatives from all Western Balkan administrations, we had possibility to create environment, and I'm so happy that Minister Minchev today mentioned the IT tool, which developed for North Macedonia with support of RESPA. And this is one good example which can be replicated to the other administrations because they have a tool that support North Macedonia public reform process and monitor the public administration reform agenda. And I think this is one example of very valuable use of user needs in the process of using digital transformation in daily work and for the daily needs of business and citizens. What is important? We today have technology which is developed. I think we couldn't have imagined 15 years ago what will happen. And based on this, we have to accelerate process much faster. I will continue with the colleagues from the project, and they mentioned activities related to race awareness, related to cooperation with the citizens, but also is extremely important for citizens to know that on the other side, there are the registers, as the colleague from Kosovo mentioned, there are some procedures, some tools, there are interoperability framework. There is once only principle, and that principle has to be used. And based on this, we have to be focused. What are our needs as a citizens from a public administration, and maybe continue to talk about no just one-stop shop. Talk about no-stop shop, one place when the citizens' all needs, all data relevant to the citizens' need are stored, and the citizen doesn't need to know who is responsible for what. They just have to know which steps the public administration needs to pass to complete their needs from them. Based on this, some good examples, I'm so happy that colleague from Albania is here, are the examples from Serbia, from Albania. There are very good portals. There is simplification of the procedures, but also no-stop services. And I think we have to go in this direction that let's, if I can say, let's the user-centric design and the citizens' needs be the way of culture for all public administration institutions. And let's listen to them, think how we can the best way implement principle once only, and based on this principle, develop all future services. RESPA as an organization which, as I mentioned, cooperate with 6 administrations from Western Balkans, but also from 1st January, we have a great cooperation, and we are work together with Armenia, Moldova, and Ukraine. We really can support and provide a very, very huge impact to the user-centric design development public administration. And our instrument of support, such piloting of programs or trainings or on-demand support, may be very, very valuable, not just for one administration, which we supported with their concrete needs. We can do the replication of this support to the other. But I think there are a lot of super examples, but we need to replicate them to the other administrations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, there are a lot of examples, and thank you all for sharing these successful examples. But let us now hear about some examples and lessons learned for even more advanced countries that we can replicate or look upon. So Bruno, OECD countries are already implementing such approaches for many, many years. Can you share with us what are some of the key lessons learned from these processes?
Well, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. Thank you, Valentina, and good morning to my colleagues. Congratulations on WeBER for the 10th anniversary. Well done, and thanks for organizing this conference. Whenever I'm drinking a coffee before a conference, I always remember that someone needs to put a procurement process for that. So thanks for that. Thanks, very much appreciated. I will focus on something that all our colleagues mentioned. All of them, of course, share the passion, the promising results of the pilots, but also all of them mentioned the next phase. We need to look forward. We need to prepare for the next phase. So I will focus on that. I will focus on the importance of the next phase whenever we activate, whenever we tap on this number of tools, on this changing of mindset. Because the next step is precisely where we can, in the end, see the impact, see the difference that those approaches can make. So I will try to go a little bit beyond the methodological aspect and focus on this element. So if we want, during the last years, human-centered design has been in a kind of charismatic phase. We launch something new, we promise a lot of results, we show interesting initiatives, but I think the time has come, and we see this in many of the countries we work with, in the European Union, for instance, that the moment is coming for us to start also looking to the enabling conditions for the results of those approaches to become implemented, to become part of the normal way of operating in the public administration. And that means that we need to start looking in a more systematic fashion to the core functions of government. Budgeting. How do we change the way we are budgeting for enabling approaches that take sometimes many years, that goes in iterative cycles, and sometimes do not fit the annual budgetary cycles? So how do we change that? How do we change procurement process so we do accumulate the exploration of new possibilities, of testing, learning, improving in a way that sometimes is not fully allowed by the way we traditionally work? I think it's not a surprise that the European Commission has been emphasizing the importance of strategic procurement. How can you lever procurement to enable those changes to happen? It also asks us to look to the infrastructure part, like our colleagues already mentioned, the importance of engaging citizens, but allowing that the enabling conditions will stay there so data can be exchanged, could be operated, so we can really explore the new possibilities opened up by these projects. This is the first aspect I want to mention, is how do we embed these approaches in a more strategic fashion? And I think here it's something that some countries are trying to do in a more systematic fashion. I will share one example from Portugal. I will mention other countries, but allow me to start with the country I came for. So in Portugal, in 2020, it was created a new mechanism called Right to Challenge, where it was framed legally the opportunity for any public servant to propose an alternative way of running a process. That means that there were created conditions to try out a new solution, always in a framed way, always with controlled risks, always to learn from the process. And this means that we are using the most, let's call it, traditional ways, a regulation, procedures, to lever a transformation that uses a human-centered approach, because those projects were mentioned, were intended to engage with users. second aspect I would like to emphasize, because I think some of the success part of what you just shared is also connected with that, is the importance of having a strong sponsorship in place. It is, of course, important to have access to tools, to have access to training. It's, of course, important to have a coalition of the willing. But the hard part is, how do we ensure sustained sponsorship that can cross, for instance, political cycles? Some of these changes are not going to happen in a point-by-point interventions. They really need the drive behind to push these into a sustained way. And one interesting example I can share from Austria, remember when I heard Bojana mentioning the no-stop shop. In Austria, they are enabling a no-stop shop for the birth certificates. So all the data is already on the side of the government, so as soon as a baby is born, it is automatically displayed all the kind of services that you are entitled to, all the kind of services you are entitled to. And when we heard, and I invite you, I can share the resource afterward, when you heard the chief digital officer from the Austrian government, Wolfgang Gebner, talking about what are the biggest challenges were not technological. The biggest challenges was to find the right buy-in to put all organizations on the same place and making them agree in a sustained, continuous way of working. And they are doing that since 2012, which means that the difficulties you are experiencing is nothing related with necessarily with the level of maturity. It's part of the way of working in public administration that demands that we are very careful, that we are very attentive. So sponsorship is the second big learning here. The third big learning, and you can take this with a more or less critical stance, is we need to move beyond the startupism mindset. It is really important to create new things. It is really important to launch new solutions. It is really important to try out new ideas, for sure. That's why we create some devices like the one we discussed, pilots, for instance. But it's equally important that we pay attention to scale up. If something works, it is going to be scaled up and shared. And this should be done not at the end of the pilot. It should be done while we are still preparing the pilot. Otherwise, we will always face this desert after the end of the pilot. It's a very challenging moment, I recognize, but this is extremely important to do. Even implementation is, as you have told us, a very challenging moment. So this really calls for us to look at the human-centered design approach, also with having in mind that this should be something that, if proven impactful, should be implemented first, and should be scaled up, and should be shared. This is extremely important, also to make the best use out of the resources we are putting in these pilots, right? And the other thing we are not so good doing is revisiting what we have. We create new things to react to new stimulus, but are we looking to what we have in place? For instance, in Sweden, I was thinking about this example because of the presence of the ambassador. In Sweden, they created this approach called anti-pilot. So they are not piloting a new approach. They are looking to an existing process and reconstructing, deconstructing, testing a new way of operating some of the most usual stabilized ways. So having this idea of looking to what we have is extremely important. And I cannot emphasize more, this is one of the top European Union priorities: simpler, faster processes. Probably we don't need to create new stuff. Maybe we need to cut some stuff. Maybe we need to revisit some of the things we have. So this is the third point I want to make. And the final point I want to make, I'm not sure if I'm taking too long, a bit, probably.
It's interesting, so we'll let you do so.
The last point. So the last point is, it is extremely important that we are enriching our portfolios. New tools, new approaches, new results, new solutions, new technologies. But we need to confront the fact that sooner or later, we need to equate the very way our governments are organized. Organizational redesign is something that is being called into question, usually by mentioning silos, but is something that really needs to change if we really want to make out the best use of, for instance, of interoperability. How can we run some technologies that, by definition, require an exchange to be the default option in a government that is still operating in a secluded way? So we need to be creative. There are many ways of doing this, of course, but calling for what some researchers have been calling next institutions is extremely important. And I will give you one example. Sigma, together with GIZ, is preparing an initiative called Government Transformation Accelerator for the Eastern Partnership countries. And this is an accelerator. It's a different format to enable promising ideas to shorten the time frame that goes between being a good idea and something ready to be implemented. And this work we are doing it by bringing together challenge owners, government teams from a specific country, with solution providers, government teams from another country that have tried out the same challenge, that have learned addressing the same challenge and put them working together across borders. This is a different way of thinking the institutional divides, the national boundaries that we have, to address, I will say, the promises, the many promises we have in place. I will stop here, and we can continue later. Thank you.
Yeah, we can continue, definitely. And thank you very much for those specific recommendations. I've seen some of the people taking notes, so it was really useful. Thank you. Now let us come back to reality. Ana, you have a hands-on experience in transforming several public services in Serbia. And can you tell us a bit more about these experiences?
Hands-on experiences and challenges, yeah. I would say that I have experience working and implementing design thinking and human-centered design in our country, but also in other countries, because on behalf of Design Thinkers Academy, we worked with other governments as well. So we started working with GIZ 3 or 4 years ago. That was our first project, and the second one started in 2024, also supported by GIZ. And the main goal of this project was to create human-centered design methodology that will be successfully implemented in our country. The second goal was to educate a lot of public servants, and the third one to redesign, practically redesign services by using this methodology we created. When I say we created, the thing is that we all know human-centered design and principles of human-centered design and the stages and the steps and stuff like that. But if we want truly to have methodology that will work and live within the government, we need to ask our public servants, okay, what is your pain point? So we had this empathy phase and research phase with them. We spoke with a lot of public servants from different ministries, IT office, different institutions, public institutions, agencies. And then we realized what was their experience when they delivering and improving and redesigning the services. So that was the first step that we did. And based on that experience, based on that insights, we proposed the steps that we at that moment that we think, and now that we know that we will work for our government, because when we created this methodology, we tested, and we saw what was the main feedback from the users of this methodology. So the steps, the main step, and this is something that I will agree with Bruno as well. The main step and the thing that we all need to do is the kickoff meeting with all stakeholders aligned about the aim of this project. So this is something, and also if you want to have service on EU Prava portal, we need to have IT office at the beginning of the journey, and I think that this is the game changer in implementation and creation of the redesign of the services. So that one, and legal representatives. So this is something in terms of project strategy approach, the step that we developed a little bit more compared with some other steps that we are having in some other human-centered design methodologies. And from my practical experience, I would say that this is really important for us to have as a starting point. All stakeholders, but aligned. They will come, but they need to align that this is the aim of this project. Afterwards, what we did, we redesigned the services with the National Employment Agency. 9 services we redesigned, so that was also one of the goals that we had in this project. And we went through the project strategy part, empathy, ideation, concept design, detailed design, and prototyping. What was really important here, I can hear that we are talking about we need to ask citizens, we need to talk with them, we need to do interviews. Yeah, but when you have people, public servants in our project team, they were the part of the project team. And when I said to them, like, now you are doing interviews, they were like, what? No. I already know that, you know, we have them on a daily level, we speak with them on a daily level. And then I said, okay, yes, but have you asked them, what is your experience while you are using this service? You never ask them that. You are just giving them like, you need 2 papers, 3 papers, go back and stuff like that. But you haven't spoke with them about their experience, about their, you know, pain points, about, you know, how they felt while they were using the service. So it's really important that people who are working in public administration embrace the skill set of empathy, which is the game changer, not only just, you know, because usually they say, we have comments from call center, we have comments from complaints, we speak with them, we spoke with them, and stuff like that. So they need to be in the field with the citizens to really see the perspective of the citizens from you know, from their shoes. So I think that was really some kind of challenging moment for everyone. And also the aha moment was when they came back and they said, oh my God, I thought that I know how their experience looks like, but at the end now I find something new. So that was in that empathy phase in redesign of the services quite important. And then we created, based on insight we got it, we created concept design, detailed design, and then we did testing. We asked our citizens what they think about that service, you know, digitalized and stuff like that. And then we went to IT office. So with prototyping, and with that kind of solution, we asked for the support from IT office in order to do that kind of IT technical part in digitalization. But I think it's really important to know that when we are improving and redesigning the services, we usually think that this is just application, but this is also the change of the law, this is also the change of regulation, this is also the change of the way how some institutions will work in the future if we want to redesign the service. So the solution is not only digitalized, you know, service, it's also all back-end things that we need to do in order to provide that service. And that is the biggest challenge, not the one that we draw, the digital application. This is the one that we need to change the things in order to have that service. So we had this successful story with 9 services, but I think that we need a lot of services to redesign based on this methodology in order to really feel this impact of human-centered design within our government.
And if you would to pick one key lesson learned, what would it be?
One, two?
Two, but short.
Yeah. Importance of support of IT office if you want to have the service on e-Uprava portal. And the second one, that public servants, when they are people who are working in public administration, when they're talking about redesigning of the services, they are talking about administrative procedures. So a redesign of the service integrates several administrative procedures, but they're just looking through the eyes of the one. So this is the main thing. When we were talking about the service, they were talking about administrative procedures, and I was talking about the experience citizens are having. I don't care as a citizen how many, you know, procedures you have in the backend, but that was the thing. Like, I needed to be in their shoes, and they needed to be in my shoes in order to have the same language and the same. Yeah.
We need more of that two-way communication. Okay, so as we are running a bit out of time, I'd now like maybe to invite our audience to think of some questions or examples or reflections that you would like to share. But before, while you're thinking, maybe we can use the time to show you one video about how one institution, Public Policy Secretariat, is already implementing human-centric approach for a long time, right? Longer than this WeBER initiative lasts. So maybe we can have that video while you're thinking.
Services from the perspective of citizens and the businesses can often seem like a real challenge. When citizens try to exercise a right or fulfill an obligation, the system often seems very complex. Citizens ask themselves where they should turn, what is required, and how can they find a solution. At the Public Policy Secretariat, we start from the real needs of beneficiaries. We talk with citizens and businesses, listen to their problems and experiences, and identify the obstacles they face. Based on this, we design services that are clearer, simpler, and more accessible. We simplify procedures, remove unnecessary steps, and adapt services to real-life situations based on the needs of citizens and businesses. At the same time, we connect institutions so they can function as one system for citizens. Instead of moving from counter to counter, the user is provided with an easier access to services. Citizens should not have to understand the complexity of the system. The system should be organized to work for citizens and businesses. The result are services that function in everyday life, simpler, faster, and clearer. Less administration, more predictability, and easier access to rights and services. That is why we listen to citizens and businesses, work together with them, co-create services, and through testing them, we find the best solutions. The key is cooperation. Success lies in simplicity. Services designed to meet citizens' needs. Accessible, understandable, easy to use. Public Policy Secretariat.
Okay, so do we have any questions, reflections, or examples that you would like to share?
I have one.
Yeah? Okay.
It's working. I think that after so discussion, excellent discussions, I think that the main risk is not deliberate misconduct, lack of legislations, lack of guidance, procedures ambiguities, but is that you have not access like citizens in the policy making, in the decision making. And it's very important to avoid everything and to be clear in front of citizens that the citizens to be the important part of decision making in our reforms, in public reforms. And this is very important. We have legislations, every country has legislations, have regulations, but changing institutional cultures and the citizens to be the part of important reforms absolutely is the good things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Come on, WeBER is a co-creation and participatory process, so I really hope that we can have this Q&A session as inclusive and interactive.
Dobar dan svima. Ja sam Jelena Radojković, dolazim iz jednog malog mesta iz Srbije, to je Svrljig, ali upravo sam se vratila iz Crne Gore, gde imam prijatelje u Podgorici, pa su mi se dopala dva primera njihove prakse, bih ja iznela ovde, gde su meni moji prijatelji rekli da tamo sva deca, na primjer, imaju pravo na dečji dodatak. Samim rođenjem deteta ne postoje nikakve komplikovane procedure i cenzusi, nego svaki roditelj ne mora da podnosi brdo papira, dokumentacije, da dokazuje koji prosek primanja ima i šta već. Znači, samim tim što je dete rođeno, imaju pravo na dečji dodatak. Znači, da li bi eto ta procedura u Srbiji mogla da se uprosti, da se uzme u razmatranje. A i također mi se dopalo što su mi rekli da svi tamo imaju pravo na socijalno osiguranje, znači knjižica zdravstvena se isto osigurava bez prijave na birou, bez ikakve papirologije i procedura, pa bih ja isto to predložila eto da se i kod nas primenjuje, na primjer. To su mi neki najsvežiji podaci od tuda, kod nas znam da u administraciji ljudi imaju brdo podataka. A prevodilac? Da, da. Pa ništa, evo, hoćete ponovim ili da... Ovako.
Okay, so maybe I can translate shortly. So Jelena
Radojković, da.
Jelena's question is whether we can implement something that exists in Montenegro, and that is a right for this social insurance for everybody.
Socijalne teme su meni bliske i ja to stalno pratim i što se tiče starih lica i dece i socijalnog osiguranja i onda bi, mislim, u Srbiji to trebalo uprostiti sve te procedure, jer to je jedan od prioriteta, da.
So her question is whether we all can have social insurance regardless of, I mean, whether we are employed or not, and if these procedures for getting such insurance could be simplified, as well as this child support, also regardless of your income. So, yeah.
Thank you for this initiative. PPS is an institution which is the one-stop shop for initiatives to changing the laws and the services. The first one, child
support.
No, child support. Dečji dodatak, child
support.
Child support. We propose that like improvement of the baby welcome to world. Because some of services are not included in that part, and we hope that will be recognized as a great opportunity to make life easier for all parents in Serbia. Also, for the health card, we didn't have any initiative to simplify that procedure, but please, I support you to send us, it's a very easy form on our website, your proposal, and we will analyze that proposal. Maybe we will contact you to explain us maybe deeply, but we want to work on that if you see any space for simplification that procedure.
Thank you. And can we hear Bojana?
Because I'm actually from Montenegro. I'm a Montenegro citizen as a representative of RESPA. It is political decision from 2019. ID card is the same card for health insurance. We have the same card for both. It is not necessary to use any other card, and based on the political decision as well, all Montenegro citizens have a right on health insurance, and all Montenegro kids have a right on child support. And everything is written in the law. If you have a political decision, later you can introduce to the system, to the user needs services to the citizens, but everything started with a political decision many years ago.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, we have one more question.
Thank you very much for this very interesting panel. My name is Aleksandra Brenović. I'm from the civil society organization Children Without Limits, and we are dealing with children with disabilities. And this was very interesting to hear that Republican Public Policy Secretariat is dealing on simplifying the procedures. And we had some idea to introduce some disability cards for all persons with disabilities. So now I'm wondering if we turn to the Republican Public Policy Secretariat with this initiative, would this be sufficient? Are you dealing only with kind of clarifying, simplifying procedures, or is this a policy issue that needs to be decided within the sectoral ministry? How does this work? If we turn to you with this proposal, would that be, and also for other proposals in the future? Thank you.
Depends on initiative. If is your initiative in connection with the needs to changing the law, public policy, or only some public services, we were covering whole what is in initiative. If you are focused on only on some public services, we will be focused only on these public services, and that procedure is very easy from both sides. Because we have a short time to analyze your initiative. After that, if we have some questions, we will ask you to make initiative more clear. After that, we make connections with the ministry, which is in charge for some procedure or something like that. We communicate with them. You will still in communication, because we will send you feedback from the ministry and feedback from our analyze. And in one moment, if we have a situation that we can start with the simplification of some procedure or some service, we will start with a round table with initiators who start that initiative, and the whole process will be open to changing the public policy document, some law, or public services. And unfortunately, some of our results are not so published, but from the 2016, when we start with the program for simplification and digitalization of the public services, we simplified more than 600 procedures in Serbia, and we saved more than 32 million euros for our business entities under the e-paper or the PPS Public Policy Secretariat. We digitalize more than 250 procedures, especially for business entities, and we provide that services on the e-government portal. We work all of these like coordinator of process with all other providers of services, because we are not directly provider of these services, but we work with all ministries, and now we work with local self-governments to digitalize or to simplify their procedures.
Thank you. Okay, do we have time for one more question? Yeah. Maybe let's just be short and concise.
Yes, I will be short and precise. My name is Stanka Paracek. I'm from Local Democracy Agency Subotica. And just to say that I'm really impressed to see that it's now 10 years anniversary, so the time flies, obviously. And my question actually to primarily our representatives from Serbia. At the beginning, one of the challenges was related to the communication of the reform processes, the public communication, and to make it more understandable, and not only understandable to the wider public, but also more accessible to different categories of the people, of the citizens, including, of course, ethnic minorities and different languages. But I would like to hear from you if you could see, I guess there are results, there is some progress made in terms of making the reform process visibility and the products more visible and accessible to different types of social groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to answer? Ninoslav again.
But I think that is a question directly for me. In the next period, because we are now in final stage of creation of the new program program for the simplification of administrative procedures and regulations, and they are on e-consultation portal, and right now in a stage when we are open for all suggestions. We want to improve especially to providing the information on the unique portal, RAP portal, for the more than 7,000 procedures in Serbia for all levels, on more languages, more to be more acceptable for different social groups, and always, unfortunately, problem is with funding, and because of that sometimes that looks like very slow, but right now we think that we arranged the framework for that, and in next year we will be more accessible for all social groups than today. But I hope that the end users are more satisfied now than before 3 years without that. Right now, 5 years without that portal and all this information on one place.
Thank you. Thank you for all the questions and for all examples and inspiration shared by our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you all. We now invite you for a 30-minute coffee break in front of the conference room. See you soon.